we're live, and I'm hot. New blouse. Foofy sleeves. Hello, hi. I shouldn't be baking. It's 1,000,000 degrees. What am I, crazy? It's like 1,000,000 degrees today. Yeah, it's a bazillion degrees, and I decide to make pie, because, what am I thinking? Why, you may ask, am I making pie on the middle of the day when it's like 100 degrees outside? Hi, Gemma. Hi. I'm so, but I have lots of Diet Coke and ice. Just go in the fan. So, it is August 20th. It's Thursday. It's August 20th, and today is National Radio Day. Oh, we like the radio. Now, of course, everything's internet radio. I even have a show. I have the Alison Arngrim show, UBN Go thing on Tuesdays, and technically it's radio. It's internet radio. So then it's like Facebook Live, and then it becomes a podcast, and it's on Stitcher and Apple and all them podcasty things. But it is also National Chocolate Pecan Pie Day. Not just National Pecan Pie Day. We actually had that a few days ago. Chocolate Pecan Pie Day. And they snuck in Pecan Pie Day a couple of weeks ago, and chocolate pecan, because it's not pecan season. Also, pecans are like $1 million at the supermarket right now. They're like $1 million. I said, a bag of pecans. I was like, what? I did at least find some that were on sale, so I was like, seriously? That's how much pecans are? Pie? Can I drive this pie to like work? Does this pie play music? Does it dance? Does it get Wi-Fi? Because pecans are, yeah. But they're doing it because we normally eat pecan pie at like Christmas, Thanksgiving, in November, December. And so the pecan people are trying to sell pecans and pecan pie in the middle of the summer when nobody does that. So I went for it. But also, I like chocolate pecan pie. Pecan pie is okay, but chocolate pecan pie is a whole other thing. And I actually made chocolate pecan pie a long time ago, and it was amazing. So I went, fine, we're doing it. So I've made a chocolate pecan pie. So what I did was I went and bought the $1 million tiny bag of pecans and corn syrup. I'm like, corn syrup? That's what's in pecan pie. It's not high fructose corn. This is corn syrup. And the recipe said sugar and corn syrup and eggs and some vanilla and what else? Butter, and corn syrup and pecans. But then you do chocolate. Now I melted 2 of the big cubes of like the semi-sweet and put it on the bottom with pecans, and then I threw some chocolate chips in the batter just to like chocolate it out totally. Yeah. So it's 10,000 degrees. It's a little hot. Yeah. It takes forever because apparently it has to bake for over an hour, like 60 to 70 minutes. What is that? Yeah, like over an hour. And then you're supposed to try to make sure the internal temperature is like 200 degrees. 200 degrees! But yes, 200 degrees. Like you're making a turkey or something. But I did all this. And now, can I touch it even? Sorry, that is so hot. I'm going to try to, I have like a little tea towel thing. I did. I'm sorry, sitting on it. But I have a pot holder, and if I have a tea towel, I can kind of do this. Oh wait, I have a rack. Yes, here. I can lift this. I have a thing under it, so I can pick this up without burning myself to death here. Can you see this? It's a chocolate pecan pie. It's really hot. I don't know. Can we even taste this yet, or is it nuclear? Oh, it's sort of settling down. It's not boiling anymore. I'm just like I'm terrible. I'm just sticking a fork in this thing. I'm not even like cutting a piece. Wait. Oh, it's molten lava. I don't know. Very chocolatey though. Very chocolatey looking. The center. It is not solidified. Very hot. It tastes like pecans and boiling hot chocolate. So, I don't know about that. I guess it will probably solidify. The top is solidifying. It's sort of sitting up. Well, it passes the taste test. Let's just see if we can get that puppy to solidify. Well, there you go. So it's chocolate pecan pie, and I did it. I made the chocolate pecan pie. We'll see though. It's a little. So I got some new bonnets in. It's another lovely one. New blouse, new bonnets. You know. Oh yeah, so nut allergies. Yeah, that would not work if you had a nut allergy. You cannot eat pecan pie. That's just like shoving a whole bunch of pecans. That's very nice. So the fabulous Will T. Anderson, who wrote Laura Ingalls' A Biography, and many, many, many other fabulous things about Laura and his father. He noticed our book. He actually on Facebook was like, Alison Arngrim's reading my book. And I did post. I said, I miss Bill Anderson, because we'd go to Walnut Grove, and it'd be people from Little House and me, Dean, whoever, and Bill Anderson there. Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota. And there would be Bill Anderson, and he would be booked to speak and talk about Laura and sign books and stuff. And he's such a nice, funny man, and very nice. And so we would hang out. We even got booked together into the same little bed and breakfast place, and there was nobody else there. I mean, nobody else there. We were the only two people in the bed and breakfast. And the guy who ran it said, well, I don't really sleep here. I mean, I'll be back in the morning to make the fancy breakfast, but see ya, and left. And we're in this like beautiful old Victorian house in Minnesota in the middle of nowhere. And the little town that it was on the edge of also had no one in it. It wasn't like Walnut Grove. It was a town up the road, and just like nobody lived there. And so Bill and I sat up talking in the night going, wait, why are we whispering? There's no one here. There's no one inside. And then we went outside and went, there's no one in any of the houses on this street. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone. We're in the town where no one got off. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we are literally the only people for miles. We could run up and down the street and yell and scream. It's hysterical. So we were in the creepy, spooky, haunted, 100-year-old Victorian house by ourselves, frightened out of our wits. We were like, is this the beginning of the horror movie about now? But yeah, Bill Anderson is just delightful. Just funny, lovely person. So if you ever get a chance to hear Bill Anderson speak, please, you must go. It's marvelous. So he's very clever. He is, he's a real research kind of guy. Knows this stuff. So he knows everything about Laura Ingalls' father. So he wrote this, but he's good. So normally when you read the researchy, like this is a book about Laura, it's like, but no, it's Bill. Bill totally actually can like write so that it's like fun. So there you are. Alrighty. Good Times on the Farm, chapter 15. So things are picking up. They're getting very modern. And the last chapter was like so modern. It was like, it's thoroughly modern Millie. It was so modern. Rose is a telegraph operator and has bobbed her hair, and they're living in the city. So finally, they're back to the farm. They're able to finish that house. Good times on the farm. We who live in quiet places, Laura wrote in The Ruralist, have the opportunity to become acquainted with ourselves, to think our own thoughts and live our own lives. That's why she could have lived in San Francisco, but she's like, no, Rose is going to live I'm not living in San Francisco. Rose will live in San Francisco. And she stayed there for a couple of months, and it really made her appreciate Rocky Ridge. So they're writing for all the papers, so she could go live in the big city if she wanted to at this point, but nuh-uh. Her experience in San Francisco increased her love for Rocky Ridge Farm. The turning seasons, the years filled with the rhythm of growth and harvest, gave both Laura and Manly satisfaction. Rocky Ridge Farm grew to nearly 200 acres, and the Wilders were proud they had built it together. But that is a lot, isn't it? Rose worried that her parents worked too hard. And is probably right. She suggested they move to St. Louis. Okay, first she suggested they move to San Francisco. She's getting like Eliza Jane. Let's all move to Louisiana. No. So yeah, it's craziness. So Rose now wants them to go to St. Louis, take jobs, and retire to a country home when they were old. Well, Laura said, this farm is a country place. We can move to St. Louis and work hard, 15 years or so, save our money, and then have a country place. Or we can stay here and keep on working hard, enjoying the country place as we go along, and then have it. Yeah, she's like, come out work and then you can retire to the country. And Laura's like, we're in the country. Duh. We're already here. We're not moving to the city so we can make enough money to buy a place in the country. We bought a place in the country. We're already there. Nuts. Laura's contentment in the country became one of her favorite themes in her ruralist columns. She was eager to show readers the beauty she and Manly had discovered in the Ozarks. A moment's pause to watch the glory of a sunrise or a sunset is soul-satisfying, she wrote, while a bird song will set the steps to music all day long. It's pretty good. Laura's message to country women encouraged them to become active partners on family farms. As women across America marched and demanded equality with men, it's happening now, remember, the vote, 1920, Laura was amused. She realized that farm women have always been wage earners and partners in their husbands' businesses, but no one ever noticed it. She was right. She was right, because yes, in their time, women were saying we have a right to work at the same jobs as men. Yeah, in the cities, it was really hard to work at the same job as a man, and there was lots of discrimination, and women who worked city jobs or had married rich men and were told, no, don't work. Yeah, but farm women, and, well, frankly, poor women, had always worked. And like men, and at men's jobs. And she had plowed fields and baled hay and milked cows. And nobody ever said, oh, no, I'm sorry, you're a lady. You're a lady. You shouldn't be doing that. No, that did not happen. And so, yeah, so Laura, all the farm women kind of laughed. And women said, I want to work like a man. And they're like, where you been? You can grab a pitchfork, dear. But that's how it was. So, yeah, so she was like, well, yeah, we've been complete. Me and Almanzo have been equals. She didn't have obey in her wedding vows, and it was the 1800s. So she was like, oh, you're catching up. Great, good. Through her ruralist writing, Laura became active with the Missouri Home Development Association, which worked to improve country life. She felt sympathy for isolated farm women who seldom came to town. When they did travel to the Ozark villages, often there was no place for them to rest or socialize while their husbands did business. Laura successfully worked the establishment of restrooms, circulating libraries, and social events for country women. She personally organized the women's group in Mansfield and several other nearby towns. When telephone lines stretched into the country, the Wilders installed a phone on Rocky Ridge, making Laura's organizational work easier to accomplish. Modern. In 1916, yes, 20th century, Laura helped found a group called the Athenians. That sounds fancy. It was formed to provide educational experiences and friendship among the members and had a goal, the creation of a country library. Most of the meetings were held at Hartville, the county seat, and they were very organized. Members were expected to research and present programs for the monthly meetings. Laura wrote the Athenian Club song, oh she would, and enthusiastically studied and reported. She especially enjoyed presenting literary programs, telling of Shakespeare, Dickens, Scott, and Twain. Manley drove Laura the 11 miles to Hartville in the buggy. While she was busy with the meetings, he sat and played checkers with friends in the hardware store. So she was setting up stuff for women to do when the men had their business meetings in town, the farmers. But when she had stuff to do, Manzo was playing checkers with the guys. In 1917, Laura was able to expand her efforts to improve the life of Ozark farm people. That year, 7 farmers organized the Mansfield Farm Loan Association. The Loan Association enabled farmers to borrow money to buy or improve land through the Federal Land Bank in St. Louis. Interest rates were low, and Laura encouraged many of the Wilders' neighbors to do business with the association. Laura served as secretary-treasurer, the only paid position. She interviewed borrowers in her little den in the farmhouse and later in an office in Mansfield. Helpfully, she explained the forms and applications to clients. Now remember, she worked at the bank. Once they got settled in, they became friends with the banker, and she was doing stuff for the bank, so she was sharp on that. But that's the thing. Remember, she talked about how hard it was for the farmers, for her folks, for her parents, and for her Almanzo. Yeah, you could get a homestead thing, where you're kind of borrowing the farm for the government, and if you proved up, then it paid for it. But they were constantly having trouble finding the money for equipment. They'd say, well, okay, we're going to get a good crop, but we got to buy the thresher and the thing and the plow. We don't have the money. And then they would buy stuff, and the loans. What did she say about, like, there was some 18% loans, like crazy, like bad credit card loans. There were no decent loans. And here she's saying, what if you had a system where the farmers could borrow at competitive, good, reasonable rates enough money to buy all the plows and the threshers and the equipment. And then they would have a head start, and they wouldn't be terribly, horribly in debt or unable to get their farm going at the beginning. And they could borrow money to get them through, like, locust attacks and the things like that happens. Very smart, that Laura. And the Ozarks, again, times were hard. A lot of poor people had come there from other places to make good. And she was really well read. Duh, as I said, reading Shakespeare and everything. And her parents were so well read. Ma and Pa had read everything they could get their hands on. They were quite educated. Ma was a teacher. So her family were not, country bumpkins. They were very well educated. But then she got to the Ozarks, and not everybody was very well educated. Someone saying the Ladies Club of Hooterville. Yeah. So Laura went, we need a library, we need education, we need to raise these people up, get them all, get with the program here. And she did. She did just that. Very, very smart. She explained the forms and applications to clients. Through the years, Laura doled out nearly $1 million in loans. Periodically, bank examiners from Washington arrived to inspect Laura's records, and she always received high praise for her accuracy. The Wilders of Mansfield were well known throughout the Ozarks for their activities, I'll bet, and Rose's reputation as a writer added to her parents' renown. Rose had divorced Gillette in 1918, but still used the name Rose Wilder Lane in her writings. Divorced in 1918. That had to be like a big deal, right? Because really, up until like the 60s and 70s, divorce was like, by the 70s, like everybody was divorced. I grew up in Hollywood. I was like the only person who like could tell you where their parents were. It's true. Really, LA, Hollywood, everyone I knew, their parents were divorced. Everybody's parents were divorced. But there was also a sort of advantageous that it started to be possible because women didn't have a lot of recourse. Women did not have any of the rights and recourses and places they could call and go to that they have now. So if they were married to somebody awful who was treating them horribly and beating them up and spending all their money, they were really kind of stuck. They really needed to get out. So that was probably a good thing. So I don't know. I don't know what was wrong with Gillette. Was Gillette Lane awful? Or we've read about Rose's personality. Maybe just the two of them couldn't stand to be in the house anymore. It sounded like Gillette was kind of a nice guy. Maybe Rose was like a little hard on the guy. Or maybe she just said, yeah, I'm not into this whole marriage thing, not happening, bye. There you go. They didn't, yeah. 1918, though, divorce. Nellie got divorced. Nellie Owens, the real Nellie Owens, who married Mr. Curry, who was a steamboat captain. She married Mr. Curry, and she had 3 kids with funky names like Zola and stuff. She had 3 kids, but she did get divorced. And again, it was a big deal back then. So, scandal. So Rose got divorced. But she kept his name, Rose Wilder Lane, in writing. She published a book called Henry Ford's Own Story. Oh, she liked him because she interviewed him. And then she wrote her first novel. This picture's sweet. Diverging Roads. I want to read that, right? Her magazine articles gained national attention. When she came to Mansfield to visit, the newspaper called her a writer of great note and a distinguished visitor. Laura held welcoming parties in the parlor for Rose and proudly took her to Athenian meetings, where Rose was often asked to present programs on her experiences in San Francisco and New York, where she had lived in 1919. City girl. So they're like society people. They're like fancy. They're fancy. They're not hanging out on the farm like in this little Leo DeSmet. These are now society folks with their little meat. Remember when Laura had never been to a party? And she got invited to an ice cream social, and it was like, she could hardly deal. It was like over her head, and now that was like going to a red carpet event. And now she's like, oh, the Athenian Club. So they're fancy people now. They're fancy town folk. In 1920, Rose sailed for France. France! We like France. Rose sailed for France. That was a big thing to do in the 20s. To work in the Paris publicity office of the American Red Cross. She went to work in Paris. She also dispatched magazine and newspaper reports about conditions in Europe and the Near East following World War I. Postcards, letters, and gifts, all stamped with exotic postmarks, were continually received at Rocky Ridge. Budapest, Athens, London, Vienna, Prague were among Rose's stops. Prague, no less. A visit to Albania in 1922 and a dangerous trek into the country's highlands became the subject of Rose's book, Peaks of Shala, which he dedicated to my mother, Laura Ingalls Wilder. She went to Albania. Now, I'm totally thinking of, is that like the Maritime? Albania, you border on the Adriatic. Yes, it's horrible, bad sitcom jokes. Albania. Who goes to Albania? She went to Albania. It's a single woman to Albania. Wrote a book about it. Laura and Manly missed Rose during her long absences from America, but were thrilled with her long descriptive letters telling of her adventures. Rose was still concerned with the workload on Rocky Ridge and begged her parents to rest and hire help. Her writings were bringing Rose a fine income, and she started sending an annual gift of $500 to help with expenses on Rocky Ridge. A lot of money. Now, remember when they were quibbling about going west again, and Mom was like, no, I want to stay in town. Laura was like, I think I would just like to stay home. And for them to go 16 miles up the road to teach school was like, oh, it's so far. And talking about, oh, I hear way out there, out west in the next state. And within a few years, Rose is jumping on a boat and going to France and Albania. Can you imagine Charles and Caroline would have thought their grandchild going to Albania? Wow. Finally, after nearly 4 years of world travel, Rose came home. Her train from New York came chugging into the Mansfield station in time for Christmas 1923. Manly was there with a lumber wagon to collect Rose's trunks and baggage, but Laura and Rose rode out to the farm in a taxi. There was a fire in the fireplace and chicken pie for dinner. Chicken pie. I'm going to have to make chicken pie, aren't I? Old friends dropped in to hear Rose's adventurous tales of travel. Parties were held at Rocky Ridge to welcome her home. Oh, I'll bet. Once Laura rolled up the parlor rugs and engaged fiddlers and callers for an old-fashioned square dance. Another time, she held a costume party and lit the parlor with candles. I wonder, was it Halloween? Did they celebrate Halloween yet in that way then? I mean, Halloween it's like an Irish-British holiday. It's not really a American thing. John Belushi's Albania. Who knew? There you go. Costume party. Wouldn't you love to see that? What kind of costumes? Laura and Almanzo for. Amazing. Rose's New York and San Francisco friends. I was just thinking. Rocky Ridge, they have fundraisers, out there to support the museum and the house and pay for everything, get the orchard all redone. I'm thinking, costume party. VIP, costume party in the parlor of the house, just like it was in the 20s when Laura threw it with old 1920s costumes. You know who I'm talking about. Reverend Nick, you know, do the thing. The board out there, they know. They're thinking at parties. Halloween in the parlor, costumes, a la the 1920s. I'm bringing a few dollars, I'm just saying. Well, so, Rose's New York and San Francisco friends came to visit Rocky Ridge, bringing excitement to Mansfield. Cheery Helen Boylston, a war nurse whom Rose had met in Poland, arrived for a visit that lasted over a year. She was nicknamed Trub, because she seemed to attract trouble. Trub rode horseback nearly every day, and through Rose's influence, she became a writer. Her most famous books were the Sue Barton Student Nurse series. Oh, have you heard of that? I think I've heard Sue Barton Student Nurse. I have heard of this. Well, there you go. Now we know. Rose set up her typewriter in the sleeping porch on the second floor of the Rocky Ridge farmhouse. She busily wrote articles and short stories for The Country Gentleman, Harper's, and Good Housekeeping. Harper's, as in later to HarperCollins. She wrote a book based on the life of Jack London, titled He Was a Man, and planned an Ozark book called Hillbilly. Jack London. super, super duper interesting character. I've read Call of the Wild and like a bazillion other books. But I read a book about Jack London that was written by this woman, and it was very clever because it was all about Jack London and his wife. And his wife was, they said, oh yes, his wife helped with the books. His wife wrote several of the books. It's like, oh, hello. But they were a very interesting couple. They were kind of like hippies, like 40 years before there were hippies. They were living like hippies. They were like really wild and having parties and smoking pot and doing all these like bizarro things in way back. And they were friends with Harry Houdini, and you sort of going, what the huh? But apparently Jack London was a really weird dude. Very clever, fascinating. But more interesting than one would think just reading Call of the Wild. Yeah, see, you learn about these people. I'll have to read. He was a man. See how that is. Rose's goal was to earn enough money to allow Laura and Manly to retire from farming. Her own dream was to return and live in Albania. I don't know. Is Albania? Albania must be really nice. I don't know. I mean, I've been to France and gone, yeah, I could live there. I could, yeah, Canada, France, Albania. I was recently in Berlin. Just last year I was in Berlin, and I was like, whoa, this is really nice here. But Albania? I must go sometime, mustn't I? Check it out. But she really wants them to retire and leave the farm, but they don't want to. She's like, ugh, farming, come on, you can retire. And they're like, we like it. What are you going to do? One of Rose's many gifts to her papa and her mama, Bess, was a blue 1923 Buick. It was shipped from New York. And how much could that have cost? That would have cost a fortune. Shipped from New York, and Mansfield was full of excitement the day the Buick was unloaded from a railroad car. Rose taught Manly to drive immediately, and he liked it. Laura also learned quickly, but eventually decided to let Manly do all the driving. In the fall of 1925, Laura, Rose, and Troob, Miss Trouble, set out on a trip to California. The Buick, which the Wilders named Isabel. Do you name your cars? Is that like a thing? People name their cars. I named my car. People name their cars. Isabel. Let's take Isabel for a drive. So Isabel, the Buick, took them across Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and yes, California, until they reached San Francisco. Laura enjoyed seeing many of Rose's literary friends in California. After the California trip, Laura was inspired to resume her writing. Her contributions to the ruralists had dwindled, and she resigned from her job with the Farm Loan Association after almost 10 years. Watching Rose work upstairs, reading her published stories, and seeing the checks she received for her work, encouraged Laura to pursue her own ideas for publication. When she saw the checks, Rose was making some money. In 1919, Rose had helped her with an article for McCall's magazine. In 1925, Rose collaborated with Laura again on 2 articles for The Country Gentleman, My Ozark Kitchen, and The Farm Dining Room. Laura was well paid. Mama Bess is very much pleased, Rose noted. Well, she did not want to turn down a good dollar. She saw a dollar. She was like, Rose was eager to teach Laura how to write more material for high-paying magazines. Here is your chance, she said, to make a real income. She urged Laura to hire out the increasingly difficult farm work and concentrate on writing. Well, I think she has a point. I mean, Laura likes playing with the chickens and all that, but she's kind of like, yeah, maybe you should write a book instead. Laura and Rose's focus on writing was again interrupted in 1926. Rose and Troob, Miss Trouble, left Rocky Ridge, first to study languages at the Sorbonne in Paris, pardon-moi, and then to go live in Tirana, the capital city of Albania. Sorbonne in Paris. Oh, excuse me, these are not little country folk. Sorbonne in Paris, pardon-moi. Letters passed between Laura and Rose, but Laura made no progress with literary work. When Rose returned to the farm in 1928, she saw that the work of Rocky Ridge was too heavy for her parents. They're getting older by now. Oh, here we are. Manly was 71. Laura was 61. The paralysis in Manly's feet seemed to be creeping up his legs. It was time for him to retire. Laura scolded him until he found a man named Bruce Prock to do most of the farm work. Bruce brought his family to Rocky Ridge to live in a new house the Wilders built across the road from their home. He became a good friend and helper. Laura told Manly just to boss Bruce and let him do all the work. Well, that's true. I mean, 71, a lot of people very active at 71, but Manly'd had a stroke. He'd had diphtheria. His hands, he'd had real problems with his arms and legs for a while, and then to be said, so yeah, it's time. The heavy work. So he's got a guy named Bruce, he can tell what to do. True, but Boylston returned to live on the farmhouse with the Wilders. Other friends came for long visits, so the big old house actually seemed crowded. When Rose sold her Ozark cereal called Cindy to the country gentleman for $10,000, she knew what she would do with the money. Okay, $10,000, this is the 1920s. If you sold a cereal, to a magazine now, and you got $10,000, that would be a good deal. That would be like, oh, I got paid really well for that. And this is like 100 years ago. Whoa, dude. I gotta read this thing, Cindy. It must be really good. Rose decided to build a whole new house. She did. A new house for Manly and Laura. Across the ridge from the old house, a wooded knoll was a perfect spot for the new house. It could easily be reached by a footpath from the farmhouse. Through the fall of 1928, Manly and Rose supervised the work of the builders. The house was an English-style, 5-room cottage. It was built of brown and tan rock. Remember, Laura wanted that all-stone fireplace. Brown and tan rock with a slate roof. Modern and unusual, the house became a famous place even before the Wilders moved in, with people driving by to look and talk about it. It's the Rock House. It's out there. It's lovely. By late December, the house was completed. New furniture arrived from a department store in Springfield. Ew, Botton! We have Botton furniture! Not me! Oh! This isn't like Pa going and sanding down some chairs. Botton furniture. There you go. Yep. Get 10,000. Yeah, if you're saying $10,000 for a store, be over 100,000 today's dollars. Yikes. So, she bought furniture. She got furniture literally for the department store in Springfield, 50 miles away. On Christmas morning, Rose gave the house key to her Mama Bess and her Papa. Once again, they lived in a little house, this time under the spreading oak and walnut trees of Rocky Ridge Farm. And I guess she had a rock fireplace there. Rose had the old farmhouse wired for electricity and put away the kerosene lamps for good. The house was freshly painted and furnished to Rose's taste, and she settled into right. Although Trube spent most of her days enjoying herself horseback riding and going to fox hunts. Fox hunts? I think England, they have fox hunts. She too did some writing at Rocky Ridge. It seems impossible to me that I have seen so many changes in living, Laura remarked when she thought of her new home. The Buick that took her and Manly all over the Ozarks, and the putting aside of the old ways. Every year has held more interest than the year before, she admitted. As she wrote in the Missouri Ruralist, the Wilders were living good times on the farm. So, yeah, that's chapter 15. That's it. That's it. She is now gone whoosh, 100% into modern times. No more horsey, no more buggy, no more lanterns, no more, we should have to make candles out of like lard, fat, and string to light them. No more twisting hay. No more twisting hay. They got hired people. They got electricity. They have electricity in the house, and they drive a Buick. And their daughter goes to Albania for vacation. Now there is some intrigue, possible supposition, and question. You sound like the Dr. Scott in Rocky Horror just now. Rose and her friend. So 1920s. Everybody was very modern. Everything was modern. Everything was up to date in Kansas City. Don't know, man. They were very close. Maybe she was like a muse, as they say. She was a writing partner. Maybe she just knew her way around Albania and could drive a truck. We don't know. But, yes, but those things went on in the 1920s as well. They do. There you are. Fascinating people, though. Fascinating people. Rose and Laura, way more interesting than, you think. It's like, oh, and they had the little house on Rocky Ridge, and then they drove a Buick, and then she went to Albania, and then they were writing for magazines, and then wait, what? It's amazing. It's amazing. So they are fascinating, interesting people, and Rose is very interesting. She wrote some stuff. When you go to the little bookstore, you go online, you look at that bookstore, Walnut Grove, Minnesota, their bookstore, and you check, because I'm telling you, they've got some books by Rose, and it's like, like, really? You won't believe it. She wrote about all these other countries. She wrote political stuff. She wrote amazing things. So these people are way more, the prairie ain't boring. I'm telling you that. So there's still more Bill Anderson. Not a lot more. Oh, I see. That's like 17. How many chapters in this thing? Oh, 18. I see at least 18. Okay, I have at least 2, maybe 3 chapters here. Then there's more stuff. Now, I got a book literally yesterday. You probably heard about this one, Prairie Lotus, and I'm checking it out. It's kind of cute, and it's about an Asian girl in like the 1800s in South Dakota and what that was like going through. So we'll check it out. I'll check it out. So yeah. There's more stuff, and there's more Bill Anderson stuff, and then there's Rose stuff, and there's things. So we'll find things to read, and I'll make more pie. Now this has cooled down a bit. I don't know. Is it solidified? Oh, I think it did. So I'm going to make a mess here, but I need to have a forkful and see what's happening with the pie. See, it's a little warm. Hot. Whoa, good. It's much too hot. But it is delicious. There you are. So much fun. And we'll do this tomorrow again. Who knows what craziness I will have. It's tomorrow the 21st. Ooh, lots of good stuff. So I will see you tomorrow. So stay cool, try to. And wear a little mask and wash your hands and take care. And I'll see you tomorrow. Woo!